What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Shelves. This is my Blu-ray haul, Blu-ray collection update video. It's been a couple of months. I think November was the last time that I've done one of these, and I have got a ton of Blu-rays and 4Ks since then. This is going to be one of my bigger episodes in quite a while. I've got a ton of new releases. I even got a couple of DVDs thrown in there for some weird energy. I don't hardly ever have DVDs. And then a whole bunch of older films that I've done 4K double dips or bought and watched for the first time. If I have seen one of these movies when I'm showing them, I will give you a brief little review on them. I'll tell you whether you should go out and buy it, stream it, or skip it altogether. And yeah, with all that being said, guys, we'll go ahead and bust this thing wide open. And we'll start with the oddball. We'll start with the DVDs. I don't know the last time I've actually bought DVDs or shown them. Really, it's unless it's an old title that you cannot get on Blu-ray that I'm just dying to watch, which this falls into that category. And I bought all 3 seasons of the Jamie Kennedy Experiment. This was a really popular show in the early 2000s. And if you were a big fan of Punk'd or a big fan of even more modern things like Impractical Jokers, this was kind of the show that kicked off that whole craze, at least as far as my knowledge goes. Maybe there was something before this, but this was the big hidden camera show of my time. Me and my dad especially used to watch just about every single episode whenever it would premiere. Some of them would just have us on the floor laughing, where you'd have Jamie Kennedy, who, whether you've seen the show or not, you guys probably recognize him. He's from the Scream franchise, a number of comedies. One of his more popular comedies, Malibu's Most Wanted, is actually based off of a character he made for this show. And he would just put on different makeup, different wigs, different prosthetics, and play different characters and prank random people. I always thought it was hilarious. I was looking at some old YouTube videos. They had little clips from the show, and these were pretty cheap. So I picked up all 3 of these. I've watched through the first disc of season 1 again. And yeah, I mean, there's certainly some of them that are pretty silly that makes more sense why I would laugh about it whenever I was a teenager, but there's still some of them that are pretty damn hilarious, and I have yet to even get to some of my favorites. So if you're a fan of those types of shows, maybe check out a few clips on YouTube. But yeah, the DVDs were really cheap on Amazon, so I picked those up. Now, before we move on to all of these older movies and 4K double dips, if you have a stack of movies this size that you're trying to get through, you're probably not going to have the time to spend doing meal prep for the rest of the week. So for a little bit of help with that, check out the sponsor of today's video, Factor. It's time to start your resolutions and get you ready for the new year. Anybody that has tried to stick to a diet will tell you that frantic lunch prep and rush dinners are the first thing that will lead you to reaching for an unhealthy option or going for overpriced takeout options. And I can't tell you how many times that I would rather go hungry than yet again stand over the stove and prepare meals for the entire week. Well, Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery service sets you up for success in the new year by taking all of the stress out of meal planning. Skip the grocery store, the prep, and the cleanup, and enjoy chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals that are delivered right to your door. With over 34 chef-prepared and dietitian-approved meals, there's a variety of weekly options that will never allow you to fall victim to food fatigue. Plus, you can round out your meal and replenish your snack supply with over 55 different add-ons, such as apple cinnamon pancakes or fruit smoothies. So if you're looking to take the hassle out of healthy eating, head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code CodyLeach50 to get 50% off of your first Factor box. That's 50% off by using the code CodyLeach50 at the link in the video description or going to Factor75.com. And thank you to Factor for sponsoring today's video. And now moving on to all the older films, and all of these are in no particular order, just whatever order I bought them in, whatever order I stacked them in. And you have the 4K release of Gattaca. And I've only seen this movie once, and I'm really looking forward to checking it out again. It was really interesting from what I remember. It's a futuristic kind of sci-fi drama where you have Ethan Hawke, who really wants to be an astronaut. And essentially in the future, you have like these, I don't remember if they're like genetically modified or something's gone on with breeding to where you have like these elite versions of humans that are like super tip-top shape. And he's just a regular old-fashioned human, and only the tip-top shape people are allowed to be astronauts. So he kind of has to fake his way into rising through the ranks against all these like genetically modified humans to prove that he can go into space. So it sounds like an interesting premise if you've never seen it, of course, but I have seen it. Ethan Hawke's really good in it, trying to play a human who is also trying to be very robotic. And I believe Jude Law is in this one. Yep, Jude Law, and then, of course, Uma Thurman. So I enjoyed this movie the one time that I saw it. I was looking forward to checking it out again. I don't know when I'll get a chance to, but I picked it up so that I can do that. So I would say stream it until I get a chance to rewatch it. Maybe it'll be a little bit higher. A movie that I have yet to watch, but it's always been on my list, is A Bronx Tale, and this is the 4K. I believe this was directed by Robert De Niro. Yes, a film by Robert De Niro, so this was his like directorial debut, if I'm not mistaken. I know the basic premise of it, where you have this local gangster, and he's kind of grooming this young kid who is Robert De Niro's son, I believe. So, I mean, mobster movie, Robert De Niro, that's kind of shocking how I haven't seen it at this point, but I haven't, so I picked it up so I could check it out. Now we have, I got the sticker here, still on the back. Damn. Again, Best Buy, why do you got to put stickers in the back? The Polar Express 4K, and I bought this one during the Christmas season because my youngest daughter had not seen it yet. She ended up watching it on HBO Max or whatever had it, so proving yet again that us old-timers that like physical media are dying out because kids just want to click play. But yeah, this was a really interesting movie when it first came out. The animation was really cool. You had Tom Hanks playing a whole bunch of different characters. So I remember enjoying it when I was a kid when it first came out, or maybe I was a teenager. But I picked it up so they could watch it. They watched it without me. So yeah, damn them kids. Looper. This is my favorite film by Rian Johnson. You know, a guy who's a brilliant filmmaker, but just gets a ton of shit because he was the guy that made The Last Jedi. But everything outside of The Last Jedi has been pretty damn tip-top. The Looper, you have Bruce Willis, who is an assassin, and you have Joseph Gordon-Levitt as the younger version of Bruce Willis. And essentially what a Looper is you have this high-tech company that sends targets back through time, and a Looper will kill them as they come out of like the time portal or whatever. And when they go to end their contract, the older version of the assassin gets sent back, and they essentially kill themselves, and then that's the end of their contract. But when Bruce Willis gets sent back and Joseph Gordon-Levitt is supposed to kill him to end his contract, he screws up, Bruce Willis gets away, and it becomes a hunt movie to where he's hunting his older self, but he's also being hunted by the corporation that hires him. It's a really badass movie. It's really gnarly. It goes into some pretty wild, gory, almost horror-esque type directions in certain spots. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis are awesome in this. I think this is probably Bruce Willis's best movie of like the last 15 years, 20 years. So I love this one. This one's absolutely a go out and buy it for me. We have Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket, a movie that I have not seen in its entirety since I was younger. I've seen the first half of it numerous times, but for some reason I never really carried on to the Vietnam part of it. Very often I was more infatuated with the boot camp side of things, which is the side of the movie that it's most well known for, with Arlie Ermey and Vincent D'Onofrio. But great movie. I haven't seen the whole thing in years. I wanted to check it out. I kind of want to dive into some genres this year that I haven't talked about or haven't explored much, like war movies and westerns. So maybe look out for some of that content this year, and we'll see what the interest is when I drop one or two of those. But definitely had to pick this one up. That's a go out and buy it. Oh, one from my childhood, The Flintstones. I really don't know what the reception for this movie is. I kind of feel like it's safe to bet that everybody shits on it, but at the same time, I've always really enjoyed this one. Maybe it's nostalgia. I feel like they nailed the Flintstones tone. The production value on it's really interesting. I think it just captures the whole vibe of that old cartoon very well. And the casting for all four of those characters was pretty damn spot on. So it's goofy, it's silly, it's definitely a kid-centric movie, but I've always really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed rewatching this one. So as much as it might get me shit in the comment section for those of us that aren't 90s kids, we'll see. This one's actually a go out and buy it for me. It's a lot of fun. You know, it achieves its goal very well. There can be only one. We have Highlander, and this is one that I've seen a number of times but have not watched in quite a few years. We've got the new one coming out at some point in the next couple of years with Henry Cavill that I'm very excited for. I have actually only seen this one and the fourth film, Highlander Endgame. I've heard from basically everybody to avoid the second one at all costs, and nobody ever talks about the third one. But the first one is a pretty iconic cult classic. I've always enjoyed it. I would say stream it because I'm sure it probably has not aged so well. I haven't seen it in at least 10 years, so we'll see when I get around to it. Oh, we have the Cornetto Trilogy. Oh, yeah, thanks, Amazon, by the way, for that quality control. Fucking bastards. So this is Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and At World's End. This is the 3 Edgar Wright movies starring these casts of characters. And Shaun of the Dead's the one that everybody always loves and talks about the most. Actually, Hot Fuzz is the one that I've enjoyed the most out of this trilogy. Shaun of the Dead, oddly enough, as much as I should love that movie, I've never quite got it. As many times as I've watched it, I just don't quite, it doesn't really mesh with my sense of humor, maybe. I'm not sure, but looking forward to checking it out again, seeing if maybe it'll click this time. But it was a really cheap set for 3 movies that are certainly worth having. So Hot Fuzz is a go out and buy it. The other 2, I would say stream it, even though Shaun of the Dead, I'm the only person on earth that would tell you that. So maybe go out and buy that one, err on the side of caution. Oh, man. One of the cooler releases of the last number of months, we have the Arrow video release of The Warriors, this big fat box set right here. And this is a really cool little thing for Warriors fans. So there's a whole book and everything inside of here. I mean, this is one of my favorite movies, especially of that time period. I've always loved The Warriors. I talked about it in my John Wick Chapter 4 review and my best movies of the year. There's a segment in that film that pays very direct callback to The Warriors that just shot it to one of my favorites of the year. It's got the theatrical cut. It also has the alternate version, which is like got more of a comic booky flavor that Walter Hill did years later, like in 2005 for the Blu-ray release. So definitely check this one out if you've never seen The Warriors. It ages very well. It is a movie that has, some very old aspects to it, but I think that it's timeless enough with the story that it's telling and with the cool style that it has. So this is a go out and buy it all day for me. It's one of my favorites. Speaking of one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations, you have The Dead Zone 4K. This is the one that stars Christopher Walken and Martin Sheen, where Christopher Walken has an accident and then his head injury allows him to have psychic powers where if he touches somebody, he can get glimpses of their future. And so he saves people. He starts to help the local sheriff's office try to find a murderer. Eventually, he meets Martin Sheen, who is like a congressman and sees a very grim future with him eventually becoming president and sending the world into nuclear war. And so this is just an awesome, awesome movie. One of Christopher Walken's best, one of the best Stephen King adaptations. And even though it's kind of relegated to one segment of the movie, this is a David Cronenberg film, so you get a tiny bit of that David Cronenberg body horror weirdness in here, but just a little bit. But this is a go out and buy it. I love this movie. Now we have the 4K release of Clue. This has always been a favorite of mine as well. A very different style of comedy that doesn't really get made too much anymore. Nowadays, when they try to make adaptations of board games, you just laugh and you're like, this is going to be a bomb. But this has always been the best one. Great cast of characters here. It very much captures the essence of the Clue game, but does it in a very kind of slapsticky murder mystery kind of way. The multiple endings and everything. It's an iconic comedy for me. And I'm heavily debating on bringing this to MegaCon and maybe getting Christopher Lloyd to sign this. But Christopher Lloyd autographs are extremely expensive, so I'm not sure if I'm going to do that or not. But I love Clue. Had to get the 4K release. If you have not seen it, this is a go out and buy it all day long. This is one that I've never seen. I've yet to actually pop it in, but Rear Window. This is an Alfred Hitchcock film. Alfred Hitchcock's one of those filmmakers that I need to start watching some of his other films because I've only seen The Birds and, of course, Psycho. And he's known for having some of the best movies ever, so I need to start watching some of the other ones. Rear Window, I've seen the movies that have been influenced by this, and I like pretty much all of them. Jesus Christ. Disturbia being one of the more prominent ones from my generation, so I'm looking forward to checking this one out, but have not seen it yet. Oh, yeah! Point Break, baby. And I got the Best Buy Steelbook before Best Buy absolutely gives the middle finger to physical media. But this is one of my favorite action films. This is my favorite Keanu Reeves film, which most people would say The Matrix or John Wick. This one's always been my favorite. Johnny Utah, you got Patrick Swayze in here. You have Keanu Reeves as an FBI agent hunting down some bank robbers, and they turn out to be surfers, and they're all led by Patrick Swayze. It's just absolute iconic action film of the 90s. A movie that for me is endlessly rewatchable, and so can't wait to watch it one more again. So this one, absolutely go out and buy it. This, I was actually surprised to find that it was on Blu-ray. This is one of those movies that I would almost have to buy a DVD to be able to watch it again, and that is Surviving the Game. And this is one that I remember seeing in theaters with my dad. We had the VHS tape, and I watched it a lot. And you have Ice-T here, and you have Rutger Hauer and Gary Busey and a bunch of other people. They essentially hire Ice-T, who is a homeless man, to kind of be like their guide on a hunting trip out in the wilderness. And when he gets there, it turns out that he's the game. They're a bunch of rich assholes that hunt people. And so he's trying to survive this game and starts wiping them out one by one. It's a very cool movie. It's obviously based off of The Most Dangerous Game, like the classic story there. And so if you have not seen it, it's a really fun flick from the 90s. And, I'm surprised that Ice-T didn't do more movies. He's gone on to do a lot of TV with the Law and Order and everything, but he was always really good, even as a lead in the 90s whenever he did some movies. So I like this one a lot. That one I would say to go out and buy it for me, mostly for nostalgia. Maybe stream it, check it out, and see if you like it. Going along those same lines as Surviving the Game, this is Judgment Night, which I actually just reviewed a couple of weeks ago. And I've had a foreign Blu-ray of this for the longest time, and I just noticed that the American version was released not too long ago. So I wanted to go ahead and buy this, see if maybe the picture was a little bit better. But I'll link my review up here. This is one of my favorite action thrillers of all time. It's a classic from the 90s for me. You got Emilio Estevez, Cuba Gooding Jr., you got Dennis Leary as the villain. This was a really underrated movie, underappreciated to me. So check out that review. This one's a go out and buy it. It's one of my favorites. Got a lot of go out and buy it's on this episode. Have you noticed that? I might shock some people that I've never seen this, but the 4K of Young Guns. I think I've seen pieces of the first two movies because my dad was always a big fan of them and they were always on the TV back in the day, but I've never actually sat and watched the whole thing. And it's got an iconic cast, especially for the 90s. You got Kiefer Sutherland, Emilio Estevez, Charlie Sheen, Lou Diamond Phillips. And this is a movie that I've always heard is a really fun Western. And as I said earlier, I'm trying to kind of broaden my horizons with war movies and Westerns. So this one was absolutely near the top of the list. So I picked it up, brand new release, and wanted to check it out. Haven't watched it yet, though. Another movie from my childhood that I've always loved, and that is Varsity Blues, the 4K release. This is one of my favorite football movies. I'm not a sports guy whatsoever, but I do love a good sports movie, and this one I think captured high school really well. I really like the humor in it, where the guys go to the strip club, they see their teacher as the stripper, like ultimate fantasy, right? A lot of the real-life drama and turmoil that happens between them and John Voight, who's just a prick as their coach. And again, a cast that is kind of iconic for the time that this came out, with James Van Der Beek and Paul Walker, rest in peace, a number of other people. And so I've always enjoyed this, always got a lot of laughs out of it, and I had to pick it up. That one's another go out and buy it for me. But again, nostalgia. Oh, man. I might get some shit for saying this, but I've never seen this entire movie because until now, I've only been able to find a dubbed copy of it, and I cannot stand watching dubbed movies, even more so than subtitled films. And that's The Raid. I know. Some people would say greatest action movie the last number of years. I get it. And I've seen pretty much a lot of the action movies and the action scenes and clips, and it looks incredible. But as I've said, I bought a Blu-ray of this years ago to watch it, and it's a dubbed version, and I can't stand watching that, so I've never been able to get through it. I have it on good authority that this has the regular subtitled version, so I'm going to check this out sometime very soon, and then I'll follow that up hopefully with The Raid 2, which I've heard is just as good, if not better. But yeah, I know. Haven't seen that. What am I doing reviewing movies, right? I get it. Now we have the latest release of Avatar. So Avatar does have a 4K, but I don't remember what exactly the new thing with this is. But James Cameron's got a number of big 4K releases coming out. You got this, you got Aliens, you have The Abyss, you have True Lies, which I'm really looking forward to. So I bought this one to get it on 4K finally. I believe this has all the different cuts of the movie as well, the big 3-hour plus cut and everything. So Avatar, I like it. I'm not a fanatic of it, but I definitely want to have the best version of it because it's a movie that when I do watch it, I want it to look the best that it can. So I would say stream Avatar. Aside from what I just said about having the best quality, they do have it on Disney Plus. It is, I believe, like Dolby Vision capable and everything. So if you haven't seen them, check them out. They're interesting movies. I just think that I would have rather seen James Cameron do something else besides Avatar the rest of his life, but I do like the movies. The Man in the Iron Mask. I've only seen this once or twice. My dad was always a big fan of this movie. They played it either when I was in junior high or high school in one of my classes, and I really enjoyed it. So I look forward to checking it out again. Saw the 4K release was out. It was pretty cheap. It's basically the Three Musketeers, and then you have Leonardo DiCaprio here, where he's like a twin character. You have the king, who is an absolute prick, and then you have the twin brother, who is very sweet and innocent, who's locked away in this iron mask, and the three musketeers essentially switch their places. So it's a really enjoyable movie it's like throwback Leo DiCaprio. It's before all he did was Oscar bait stuff. So maybe not Oscar bait, but, Oscar caliber stuff. We'll say that. But I enjoy it. I would say stream it. I haven't seen it in years to be able to tell you more than that. Willy Wonka, the 4K. So when Wonka came out, I got Wonka fever again, and I thought I already had this actually, but I didn't. So I picked this up and we watched it actually on Christmas Day. And I absolutely love this movie. It's one of my favorites. I'm not a big musical guy whatsoever. In fact, I pretty much dislike most musicals that I've seen, but I've always loved this one. I've always loved the story. I've always loved the songs, the magic, the characters, the cast. And so, I wanted to check this one out. It looks great in 4K. And I really enjoyed the new Wonka too. So if we get more Wonka, which it seemed to be a success, I hope we get more elements of kind of leading into this original film and whatever follow-ups we get. So go out and buy this one, absolutely. And finally, another classic of the 90s, we have Face Off, the 4K release. This is my favorite John Woo movie. This is probably my favorite Nicolas Cage and even John Travolta movie, unless I'm forgetting a really obvious one, but it's definitely up there. And you essentially have a FBI agent and you have this terrorist, and the FBI agent, the John Travolta character, has to take the face of Nicolas Cage to kind of go undercover as him, but then Nicolas Cage wakes up unexpectedly, and so he takes the face that is not being used currently by John Travolta and then goes in as an FBI guy. So they literally swap faces and swap lives. And so now you have the good guy who everybody thinks is the bad guy, and the bad guy who everybody thinks is the good guy. It's awesome. The action is great. Still ages really well. The performances of these two actors are just brilliant because John Travolta has to play Nicolas Cage playing John Travolta and vice versa. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great movie from the 90s, and it's one of my absolute favorites. So go out and buy this one absolutely as well. Woo! Now we can move on to the new releases. All right, starting off with one of the DC releases of the last year, and that is Blue Beetle. And I was actually surprised how much I really enjoyed this movie. I wasn't expecting too much out of it. It was an abysmal year for not only comic book films, but especially DC movies. And so the fate of this thing just looked grim from the beginning, but I actually really enjoyed it, despite the fact that it's very much like a throwback 2000 style comic book film. I actually feel like that kind of was a strength of this one, where it's been a weakness of some others. I like the fact that it felt very standalone. It didn't feel like it had this other universe weighing it down. So I had a good time with this one, and it was worthy of buying for me. But overall, I would say check it out online, stream it, and see if you agree. Now we have the big, gigantic success story of last year, the movie that's probably going to sweep the Oscars, and a Blu-ray that actually was really hard to come by, which, they say physical media is dead. This is an example of the fact that it's not. Oppenheimer, the latest from Christopher Nolan. I really don't know when I'm going to pop this back in and watch it, because as much as I did really appreciate Oppenheimer, it's not a movie that I could say that I really enjoyed or would really want to watch again. So it's just not my type of story, not my type of historical tale, I guess. Brilliantly done, brilliant performances, really well directed. There's no question why it deserves to win a lot of the awards that it's likely going to win. But for me, it's not a movie that I'm going to rewatch very often. But I did want to pick it up. Did want to pick up the 4K to add to the collection so that one day when I do want to check it out, it's there for me. So overall, I would say go out and buy it if you're the type of movie or type of film fan that is interested in that. If you're not, then there's no reason to stream it or anything if it's not your type of thing. The biggest surprise of last year, Saw X. I have been a casual at best fan of the Saw franchise. About half of those movies I really don't care for whatsoever, while I like the other half quite a bit. And I would have never expected this to be not only a good movie, but what I call the best of the franchise, and it absolutely was. It blew me away. I have yet to check it out again. Haven't really had time to, but I do really look forward to seeing it again and seeing how well it holds up for me, and I'm really excited for Saw 11, but this one finally got it right as far as giving us a really good story, putting John Kramer in the forefront, and still having a lot of that classic Saw flavor with the traps and the nastiness, but you actually are invested in seeing these people learn their lessons or not. So I really enjoyed this one. Massive surprise from last year. Go out and buy it. Good old classic Denzel kicking ass. Aside from the fact that this is an extremely boring cover, they didn't do anything interesting with it whatsoever. I like the cover that we got on the poster where he's like sitting in the chair and like got the cathedral look behind him. But nonetheless, third film, possibly final film in this Equalizer series with Denzel. I've enjoyed all of them. I think they're all very solid action movies. They're all solid, like 3.5, 3 3/4 star action films. Throwback, a lot of violence, some good hand-to-hand combat, and Denzel Washington just oozes charm, oozes charisma. So this one is par for the course with the other two. I highly enjoyed it. If you like these types of movies, you will enjoy it. If you don't really get the appeal of these, then this isn't going to do anything to change your mind. It's very much continuing on what the other two did well. I would say to stream that one. It's solid. Now we have the 4K release of Live, Die, Repeat, or Edge of Tomorrow, or All You Need Is Kill, or have we even decided on a fucking title for this movie yet? It was released as Edge of Tomorrow, which is a very lame title. Even the trailers of this movie were abysmal, and this was one of the bigger success stories of word of mouth, because this would have bombed until everybody went to go see it and said, holy shit, this thing's awesome, and then slowly over the next couple of weeks when it came out, the box office started to rise. And then when they got the physical media release, they changed it over to Live, Die, Repeat, and then now we're back to saying Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat. Is that even in focus? Anyway, they keep swapping around the titles of this. Nonetheless, very cool movie with Tom Cruise, very against typecast for him to where he's kind of playing a Nimrod that just happens to kind of get to become a badass because he gets to repeat the day over and over and over again to try to wipe out this alien menace. A very fun movie. So if you have not seen this one, it's one of the more interesting recent Tom Cruise movies it'll probably surprise you. I would say go out and buy that one. Another really big surprise from last year, we have Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. I really wasn't interested in this. The whole Dungeons & Dragons thing is not really my subgenre. I'm not really a fantasy guy. Didn't think anything of the last time that they tried to do these movies as well as everybody else. So this one kind of seemed like it was maybe destined to be a bit of a dud, and everybody was saying how much fun it was, so I went to go check it out, and it was a genuinely fun movie. I think it's a nice little franchise potential here. Some good fantasy action, but a lot of really well-done comedy, really fun cast, some good chemistry with everybody. So I actually had a really good time with this one, and I look forward to checking it out again. So this one I would also say, go out and buy it. It was impressive. Another really big surprise last year is Dumb Money. This actually made it into like my top 20, I believe. And this is telling the true story of like the GameStop stock extravaganza from a number of years ago. And I remember hearing about that, and I just never really understood what the deal was, what happened, because I'm not really well versed in stock exchange or anything like that. And what this movie does a really good job of is showing you the true story, showing you from multiple angles, and showing you how big of a deal it actually was, while also being able to keep people like me up to speed on how this happened, and using a bit of an education angle to onboard a lot of us that aren't really well versed in stock exchange and Wall Street and all of that, to understand the terms and the terminology and how things work. So it was a really interesting movie. I like true stories that can be told in a way like this that can be appealing for everybody. A really good cast here, some really good funny moments as well, which you would expect from a cast like this. So this one was a really enjoyable true story. So I would say go out and buy that one as well. My favorite animated film of last year, and no, it's not Spider-Man, it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I got the Steelbook as well. I really loved this. I love the Ninja Turtles, always have my entire life. I've always been a gigantic fan of those characters, and to me, this is easily the best that we have gotten since the first two live-action films in the 90s, and many people would say the best even over those, but this is a really good original take on these characters. I think they nailed the characters. I think they're trying to explore some things here that haven't really been dived into too much, as far as like acceptance and things that are very much resonant for the Ninja Turtles, but have always been glossed over. I think they did a good job with introducing all these different villains. So I'm on board with whatever they're going to do with this. I think there's going to be a sequel as well as a Paramount Plus series, and I'm going to end up checking out both of them. So I love this one. Go out and buy it. Wow, this is a weird story. So you're going to know that if you watch the previous versions of Off the Shelves from last year, I already have shown this film. So what happened is I pre-ordered this Best Buy exclusive steelbook of Prey whenever it first went on sale, like the day. And when it was supposed to ship, I never got it. And I looked at it and I contacted Best Buy and they were like, I don't know where it is. It's obviously lost. And I said, okay, well, can I get a replacement? And they said, unfortunately, no, because there's no more of the 4K steelbooks left. And so I was very pissed off about that because I was like, you motherfuckers, I pre-ordered on day one and you're telling me I'm not going to be able to get one. So I got my money back from Best Buy and then I bought just the regular 4K from Amazon and just kind of cut my losses. Well, then randomly, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, this shows up on my doorstep. So it finally found its way home and I got it for free, I guess. So yeah, I loved Prey. This is from 2 years ago. It was a great movie. It was a great return to form for Predator movies. I want to see other 80s action, horror, sci-fi franchises take this approach, like Terminator especially. And now I've got the 4K Blu-ray, the Steelbook. So I guess I'll have 2 copies of this movie. But this one, I would say go out and buy it. Oh, Lord. All right. We have The Flash. Wow. This was a weird topic of discussion this year because I genuinely think this movie was a very enjoyable movie. I really did like it. Aside from the CG, which absolutely was terrible. But this thing just bombed like a son of a bitch. And as the year went on, this became kind of the topic of discussion of like worst movies of the year from a lot of people. And I don't quite understand that. I can understand taking some issues with Ezra Miller. I can understand taking some issues with the CGI, but there's a lot of really good things in this. There's a really good story. There's some good performances. There's a really nice little throwback angle there with Michael Keaton. So it kind of puzzled me how negative people got on this over time, but I really did enjoy it. So if you've been scared away from checking out this movie because of the online discourse, but you did have interest in checking it out, I would say at least stream it because you might be surprised how much you enjoy it. I think it's a really good movie. If the CGI was better, I would say it's easily one of the best DC films. But nonetheless, it seems to be kind of a love or hate experience. So stream it, check it out. Let me know what you thought. One of my top 3 favorite films of last year, and that is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. And this one actually says part 1, but much like with another Tom Cruise movie we just got done talking about, they have now changed the title of this to just Dead Reckoning. They're not going to do a part 2 or part 3 or however many they were planning. It's just going to be called something else. So this is going to end up being somewhat of a collector's item, I would think, because it says part 1 on it. This is a really badass movie. If you like the Mission Impossible films, this just continues that streak of them just being basically almost without exception, just getting better every single time. This is not my favorite of the franchise, but I mean, the last 5, maybe 6 of these movies, you could make a case for them being the best of the franchise. So stiff competition, a really good story, some great action work, some great stunts here, really good AI angle here for the villain that I thought was very interesting, a nice change of pace. So this ended up being my 3rd favorite film of the year. Absolutely loved it, and I would tell you to go out and buy it. Another major surprise from last year, and that was Gran Turismo. And I didn't really have much interest in this. I didn't really know what the hell it was going to be about. Video game movies kind of have a kiss of death. You know, we're starting to get some good ones. You know, Last of Us, I'm hoping, really broke the curse, and now they're going to start to be taken seriously by the studios that make them now. But I was like, how are you going to make a movie about a racing sim? I don't get it. And it turns out there's actually a true story that this is based off of. So this is much more of a sports biopic than a video game movie, but it has a cool video game style. Neil Blomkamp put some PlayStation flavor in there, and there's segments where the editing kind of brings in that video game flavor in a really cool way. But it's just a really good, solid, interesting, true story about this gamer who was so fucking good at a video game that they actually he turned into a pro racer. And so I really like this. I like David Harbour as the coach. I like the development of his relationship with the main character. And it was just a really enjoyable movie that I look forward to checking out again. So I would say go out and buy that one as well. This might be the best collection of movies that I've had off the shelves in a very, very long time, because I don't typically say go out and buy it as often as I have this time. Now we have another movie that is very much a big Oscar contender, and that is The Holdovers, the film with Paul Giamatti. And I didn't really have this on my radar. I checked it out after a number of people just started to talk about it out of nowhere, seemingly for me. And I had the screener for it, so I watched it, and I did really enjoy it. I do look forward to checking it out again eventually and seeing if maybe I was just in a weird mood the first time that I saw it. Everybody across the board seems to think that this is like one of the greatest movies made in a long time, one of the most heartwarming movies, and they've seen it 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I watched it once, and while I enjoyed it, while I really liked Paul Giamatti's performance, while I did like some of the charm and the heartwarming nature of the story, I felt it was just way too long. It was bordering on 2.5 hours, and this is like a very classic hour and 45-minute type story for me. So I didn't quite have the massive response to it that seemingly everybody else did, but it was still very good, so I wanted to buy it, and I don't know when I'll get around to watching it again, but maybe when I rewatch it, I'll be in a better mood, I'll receive it better, and maybe I'll get what everybody else sees, or maybe I'll just be that outlier who says, yeah, it's good. And that's it. Another movie I have not seen yet, but I wanted to check out, and that is the Weird Al story. So this is kind of a biopic parody kind of thing, where it's kind of the true story of Weird Al Yankovic, but also it's very much fantasized and heightened. But I've heard a lot of really good things about it. I haven't got a chance to see it yet because I think it was like on Roku, and I don't have Roku. But I wanted to see it. It seemed interesting. I like the cast of it. Weird Al is somebody that I've never really been that infatuated with, although I have a very close friend of mine from my childhood who is obsessed with Weird Al. Hello, Abbott, if you're watching this. But it intrigued me. It's again, true stories like Gran Turismo and Dumb Money, things that I'm very out of the loop on and I would like to be educated on, or people that I would like to be educated on, like Weird Al. Those types of true stories are the ones that really draw me in the most because I'm going to learn so much. Versus if I know the person or if I'm very well versed in it, all I'm going to do is pick apart the adaptation because like that's not accurate. That's not what that happened. That's not the right year. And it's much more enjoyable to watch it from a perspective of fresh eyes. So we'll see how I like that one. Another contender for shittiest Amazon shipping, you fucking assholes. Suitable Flesh. This is a movie that I saw at Fantastic Fest, and this is a wild movie. It's a H.P. Lovecraft body swap, body horror type movie, but there's also very much this erotic thriller, Skinamax angle to it. It's got Heather Graham. It's got Barbara Crampton. It's worth checking out. It's very interesting. I liked it enough to buy it, obviously, but you have a psychiatrist played by Heather Graham. She has this kid who comes in, this teenager who's like, hey, my father is crazy. He's trying to take over my body. And she thinks he's a psycho, ends up being that he's telling the truth. His dad's like possessed by a demon that's trying to move vessels. But then it quickly turns into like this sexual attraction fuckfest between her and this kid. And the weird thing about the movie is it's very, very overtly erotic, but it's very conservative with the nudity. So it's like the dialogue and the situations and the nature of the movie make you think it's like hard R, but then they're having sex scenes with like everybody's clothes. So it's kind of a weird mix, but it's a trippy movie. It's weird. It's very memorable. So I look forward to checking it out again at some point. I would say to stream it, though. It's not going to be for everybody. Finally, the last title on this list is Cisu, and this was a little independent action release last year where essentially I think Sean brought it up to my attention at last MegaCon, and he said it's like Finnish John Wick where he kills a bunch of Nazis. It was on like one of his most anticipated lists. So I kept it on my radar. I checked it out. That's exactly what it is. You got this guy that finds gold in Finland, I believe, and it's during the end of World War II, and the Nazis are still occupying, but they're on their way out. And these Nazis find him with this gold. They think that they kill him, and they steal his gold, and then he comes back to life, and one by one just brutally fucks them up. So if you like very simple concepts where you just set somebody on a path of rampage and vengeance and just watch the bloody carnage, it was entertaining. It was fun. It didn't quite go as far as I wanted it to. I didn't feel like the movie had quite delivered everything that I wanted. So it's not necessarily, it wasn't like one of my favorites of the year last year, but certainly one that I would enjoy checking out again when I'm in the mood for it. So I would say stream that one if you're an action fan, if you like things like John Wick, you'll probably enjoy it. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, please click over here for all of my 2024 new release reviews so far. I'm also going to put my ranking up here of all 121 films that I saw last year, a number of which we just discussed briefly here. If you want more in-depth thoughts on them, please like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.